Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion. It's not a straightforward review. It's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back in. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different. We are coming up on the 4th anniversary of I Love That Movie. If you had asked me 4 years ago if this would continue and take off, I would say no. I'm notorious for starting hobbies and then dropping them. I am seriously blown away that we're still going strong. And we also reached a milestone of 40K downloads, which, wow. Yeah. Again, I mean, I know you hear people say all the time, like, I'd like to thank all my listeners out there. But I really would because, honestly, this show just doesn't exist without you guys. It doesn't exist without you listening. It doesn't exist without people coming on because I can't do this alone. I don't want to do this alone. I want to do this with people. And I want to hear your stories about your favorite films. And I want to engage and have great discussions about movies with you. So what I do is I pick between March of 2020 to March now. I pull a spreadsheet and figure out what are the most downloaded episodes. Now you would think that would make anything that happens in March the most downloaded. It really does not. It really depends. And I think this is sort of like a neutral way of picking people because it's like, I think that, it shows that people really enjoy those movies and sometimes also specifically the guests. And yeah, I think it's just like the best way to pick. I've thought about voting, but honestly, I don't think my following is big enough to have like enough people vote for the best episodes. Maybe I'm selling myself short here, but I just don't think that there's enough people tuning in that would vote consistently. And I think that would take a lot of time. So this is how I've been doing it. These are going to be the top 5 episodes of the year, and I'm going to kick it off with number 5. But I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you again to all of you listening. All right, so we'll start with number 5. The 5 most listened to episode from last year is Dredd. So I brought back my guest from that episode to talk about with me, and that was Nick.
It's me again.
Yay! You've been on the countdown before, right? I think you have.
I think I was just
Mad Max or
I was
something
just
like
thinking,
that?
no, I don't think we've done Mad Max.
Oh, I
should
made
do
that
Mad
up.
Max.
Yeah, you should. But I like how we just invented an episode. Well, you're back for number 5, Dredd. This is for both of us. This is like a favorite movie.
Wasn't this like the anniversary episode? Like for our wedding anniversary, we picked Dredd.
I think so. We've picked Casino one year, Dredd,
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but number 1, I think we did a great job in the episode. Obviously, we're such pros.
Clearly.
But
it's the guest you have.
Yeah. It's all about you. It is all about you, the listener. But I feel like it's not a movie that's covered as often. What do you think? Why do you think it was so popular?
Which is weird because I feel like when people saw it, they really liked it, but I don't think enough people went out to see it.
Yeah.
So it kind of doesn't have enough word of mouth. But I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do. Like this movie was like super badass. It like captured the real grittiness from like the 2008 comics that the Sylvester Stallone one didn't really have.
Right.
I mean, it's a solid... I mean, it could not be Dredd, and it would still be an awesome movie.
I agree. I mean, we talked about it in the episode, but it's shot very artistically. It's got, beautiful special effects, great action, an incredible cast, but I do think it kind of does have that cult status that you were talking about.
I think in another few years, it's going to be even bigger than it is now.
Yeah, especially since a lot of the cast they are bigger than they were then.
Yeah.
Like, I would argue even Carl Urban is more famous now than he was when he made that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been in a million things. He's always been around, but I think with like The Boys,
Well, yeah, it's weird. It's like as popular and as huge as like Lord of the Rings were. Like I feel like a lot of people don't really remember him from those movies.
right? I mean, and he was like in Thor Ragnarok. Was it Ragnarok?
think
He's in
he
one of the Thor movies.
Might be in a few, but I
Yeah.
mean, he's more noticeable in Ragnarok.
Right. And then, he has had success, like I said, with The Boys, also with the Star Trek films
Yeah.
as Bones. But it really feels like lately he's like, a hot actor. Like everyone wants him
Yeah.
in their projects.
I do think it's The Boys. I mean, that show
Yeah.
is just really cool.
Yeah, it's really good. Have you gone back and listened to the episode at all?
Yes.
Okay. Whenever I ask that, I'm like, hopefully I'm not putting pressure on people. Like, you did re-listen to it, didn't you? Because if I'm honest, guys, I don't always get a chance. So
Well,
no shade.
I usually hear it when you listen to it.
There you go.
So
That's
I
a good
pretty much
answer.
hear all the episodes.
But yeah, I thought it was a really good discussion. We have a lot of energy. We sound like we really enjoy the film. I think everyone should go back and listen to that episode. So this is kind of, as I always say, this is like my thank you to you. Thank you for picking that episode. Thank you for coming on and for talking about it. It was one of my favorite episodes that we recorded, and some of that is because you're one of my favorite people, Nick.
That's why I'm on so many episodes.
And because I like that movie so much.
It is a really good movie. I love that movie.
So, there's been talks for years about potentially a sequel. What do you think about that?
I was kind of hoping you'd bring that up. Like, I'm not going to say hope. I'm just going to say I wish they would do it because Urban said he was totally on board. I think that's mostly been debunked. Then there was talk of maybe doing a show.
Oh, yeah, I
And I
remember
think
that.
he said he was on board for that too, but I don't think that's gone anywhere. It's a shame because whenever they revisited Dredd in this newer version, they left so much open and so much more they could do. Like the real introduction of like Mega City 1 and the fact and its actual location to where you're like, oh, well, what's on the other side of the walls? And I think there's been speculation that would have been the second movie, the Scorched Earth series that they did a run on. I don't even know how long ago. I mean, I think Dredd is comic wise like 60 years old now or something crazy
Wow,
like
I
that.
didn't realize that. That's so cool.
But there's just so much material they could do another equally, if not more epic Dredd movie. But I don't think it's gonna get it because this is more of a cult movie. I think
Yeah.
it's gonna get a little too old before they can do that with the current cast, and then they'll just reboot it again, unfortunately, I think.
Yeah, we talked recently about Alita Battle Angel, and that was in sort of the cyberpunk genre as well. But it owes a lot, I think, to Akira, which I actually also talked recently on Tim Rooney's show about, and you and I have we've talked about it, I think, on this show.
Yeah.
We've actually covered a lot of cyberpunk. When you
Actually, I think
about
Akira, that was like the second or third episode.
it was pretty
we
early
did.
on, yeah. And so we've talked about cyberpunk 2 or 3 times by now because we did
Yeah.
Dredd and then Akira, and we also did Alita. It's just a genre that we both really enjoy and keep coming back to. But I also feel like there's standouts in that genre. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of other films in that genre that you don't know that I can't even think of right now.
yeah, but just don't quite have the same impact cinematically.
And it's
or-
a shame because the stories are probably great. They get way less press than these movies do, and these movies don't even get that much press.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a market for this genre. I think maybe now so more than in the past. I mean, now we're living in a world with like Westworld and what's that other show called Altered Carbon?
Yeah. I think it's not really in the same genre, but kinda they share a little bit. I think with the success Fury Road had
True.
a few years back, I feel like that could lead the way to more movies like this being considered film and not just a popcorn flick.
Yeah, I agree. Or not just niche, but
Yeah,
like
like an
more.
actual movie that everyone is going to see.
Awesome. Well, was there anything in the episode that you felt like we didn't cover that you later were like, oh my gosh, I wish we had talked about that?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, we keep going on how amazing it is, but it's amazing because it's a very simple story.
Yeah.
I feel like we covered most of it, and much like the movie covers most of its story. I mean, there's very little in like super snobby movie term like plot holes. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
they
true.
they wrap everything up pretty well with giving you something to hope for, even though we're not going to get that. But yeah, I don't feel like we really missed anything either. I'm sure we did, but it's probably something so minor that I can't really think of anything.
Yeah, I think we covered it really well, and I felt like people really obviously responded positively to the episode. So
No.
once again, thanks Nick for coming on. Do you got anything you want to plug before you go?
Just my usual stuff. I build props and replicas of stuff. You can find me on all the platforms under Wardco Props.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and I'll have you back soon.
Thanks.
All right, so now we are at number 4, and the number 4th most downloaded episode was Mrs. Doubtfire. So I brought Chris Balga back to talk about it.
Hey Lisa, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Just kind of relaxing here and excited to be part of your top five.
Yes, thank you so much. You're a recurring figure in my top 5. I feel like it's been at least one other year, if not more.
Yeah, I think the one I think it was almost like the very first time I'd ever come on your show was for Ghostbusters. So it was like
Yes.
shortly after that saying you ended up in the top five. I said, well, that was quick.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to my next question here. So, I always ask my guests every year, why do you think Mrs. Doubtfire, like, why do you think that episode resonated so much with people?
I think it's a good, it's Robin Williams, so it's
Yeah,
Robin
true.
Williams doing comedy, so it's always a good combination. But you can there's a ton of comedies you can do with Robin Williams, but I think what continues to resonate with people with the movie is that its message, it doesn't it has a serious matter that it discusses, but it also it has a lot of good natured humor, and it's just a great cast, a lot of great chemistry. And I said it on the episode, I think the ending is one of the best endings that you could do for that movie without giving people, at least people watching the movie and kids, false hope for when it comes to divorce.
Yeah, I know you shared a lot of kind of personal stories about how this movie was sort of healing for you, how you related to it. Coming from divorced parents, I had the same experience in the sense that my parents divorced when I was 4, and how refreshing it is that this is such a positive look at after that. Which was even controversial at the time. You guys can go back and listen to the episode, but we talk about how, studios were pressuring them to change the ending, but they didn't, and that's probably why it's, stuck around as a classic.
Yeah, I mean, no one, necessarily enjoys divorce. I had a friend kind of tell me once saying, well, divorce can be a good thing because obviously two people who can't be with each other, that's never it's not a good thing. But as even the movie goes into, they're much better people when they're apart. And I think the good thing is it's more than just a guy dressing up in quote unquote drag the entire movie. He becomes a better person due to him, being Mrs. Doubtfire. Because if it was all just a joke, I don't think the movie would land as well as it always has.
I think that's a good point. Mrs. Doubtfire is a better version of himself, really. Like, it's a persona that he puts on that's a better caretaker to the children. And through playing that role, he realizes where he's kind of fallen short and where he has some room to grow. And by the end of the episode, he's grown as a person, and then he uses that persona in his career. So it was like literally Mrs. Doubtfire is a huge leap forward for him in every aspect of his life, which I agree that's probably why it ages a little bit better than if he had just been in drag and that's it.
Yeah, and I remember distinctly there is a deleted scene that they filmed where, it's after Miranda had come in to the house after him being Miss Doubtfire for a while, and she goes into, Daniel's apartment, and he was trying to say, well, oh, I'm glad everything's going well. Let me take the kids. Let me spend some more afternoons and things like that. You don't have to do, Mrs. Doubtfire or anything like that. And she's like, oh, how could I do that? She's done such a great job. And after she leaves, he sees the Mrs. Doubtfire's mask, and they get up, and he looks at it and says homewrecker, and then walks away. And they cut that scene. I think Christopher Columbus at the time had said it just, we could understand why that would be in there, but it almost would be a detriment to the movie, and I can definitely see why.
Yeah, that would play a little weird. It's like, wait, he resents the persona that's helping him grow? Like,
and at least get a chance. I mean, I get that he wants to be physically with his own kids instead of always being in Mrs. Doubtfire, but I agree. I don't think it would have carried well into the movie as a whole.
Yeah, because I think you're suspending some disbelief watching it anyway, and so I don't know. Yeah, it's a little too maybe realistic of how he might actually feel. Yeah, I don't know. I agree, but yeah, it's such a fun movie, and we had such a good discussion talking about it. It's always enjoyable to have you on, but I really like that episode. It was something where, it's just a classic film that I grew up with and saw so many times. I still catch myself quoting it every once in a while to this day, and so it was really fun to revisit for sure.
And it's always interesting, I'm thinking back in my mind, like how many of those top comedies are like many people consider to be top comedies have themes of or characters that dress in drag. Some that stand in my mind, Tootsie or Some Like It Hot. I mean, those are just so good movies, and I'm thinking in my mind, almost every one of them has it reminds me of the line that's in Tootsie when Dustin Hoffman kind of tries to fumbles lines like, I was a better man as a woman than as a man being who I am. So I probably fumbled that line, but that kind of rings true in almost every one of those movies. That line, it can be applied in all three of those.
Yeah, because it's almost like by putting themselves in somebody else's shoes, quote unquote, they grow as a person because they're able to see things from other perspectives. Whereas like the consistency with a lot of those characters is that, they're very, I don't want to say narrow-minded like they're narrow-minded and, mean, but they're narrow-minded in the sense that they don't think about others as much.
Yeah.
And it seems like for whatever reason, when they take on another persona, they grow as a person and they're better able to understand how other people think and live, and so by the end they kind of grow all together because they're like, oh, okay, I see this from someone else's perspective. It gives them like a unique window into other people's lives, and then they become a more empathetic person by the end.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a good movie that brings out a lot of the stuff, but there will not be, I challenge anyone to not watch that movie and not at least have one or two. If you only have one or two, I still wonder, but you will have one or two outright laugh out loud moments, and then there are those moments where you're just your heart's gonna break.
Yeah, it's very touching, and that's a very tough balance. I think Chris Columbus is really good at that, balancing really moving scenes with comedy. I think it can be hard to juggle both.
But yeah, it's just one of those that. And I think we had done this right at the start of pandemic, and
yeah, that's a good point. That feels weird now.
And yeah, we're coming up on a year to the start of this whole thing, at least for how we kind of encompassed it. And I think it was just seeing that movie will bring about like some good feelings in a movie that deals with some very serious topics, but I think that's, as we said before, that's where the movie shines. It finds that very good balance with drama and comedy.
I think that you covered this at a time where I asked people, could you pick movies that are a little bit happier? Because we all need to smile. We had no idea. That went on for so long that I finally said, actually, just pick whatever movie you want, because we can't. I don't know when this is going to be over, but it was like, it is a good movie to pick for sort of a pick-me-up, and even though it deals with some serious topics, like you said, it's a very uplifting film. So if you're having a down day, which you could be, I don't know. Like I said, this isn't going away anytime soon. So if you need to revisit it, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, just if you just want to get a good laugh, just watch him trying to figure out what's the best mask or makeup for, like when he's there with his brother trying to figure out how he's going when he comes in. I need you to make me a woman.
Yes. Well, Chris, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for being on the show. You've been such a consistent guest, and I've loved coming on your show too. So, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Balga. I got 2 shows, both part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. So you just search for Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on any podcatcher. And the 2 shows where I'm specifically on at a very consistent basis is Marvel Alliance, where we deal with everything and anything going on in the Marvel universe, from comics, TV, and movies. And then the other show is World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers, and Marvel A at Marvel A podcast for the other one, and World's Finest True Believers. The guest comes on and picks a comic book or graphic novel from any publisher, and we do a deep dive into it. So I look forward to having you back on World's Finest sometime soon.
Yes, definitely. And by the way, I think I'm on volume 7 of Invincible. I'm almost done.
Oh, gosh. So good.
I've made some progress, but I haven't completely finished it, so I'm being honest.
That's good. You're getting ready for the show coming up in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. Yes. So. I'm so glad that I finally, you kept mentioning it, so I was like nudged. I'm like, okay, I need to do it. But yeah, thank you again for coming on. I always appreciate having you. Hope to have you back soon, and yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure's all mine.
Hi, I'm Ben Modell. I'm a silent film accompanist and historian, and I'm also the producer and co-host of something called the Silent Comedy Watch Party, which is a live stream show that we do every week for free on YouTube on Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Lisa, I want to thank you for having me on as a guest on your I Love That Movie podcast in 2020. And I was thrilled to find out that out of the top 5 most downloaded episodes, the one I was on was number 3 out of 5. And the movie I love that you had me on to talk about was Modern Times, starring Charlie Chaplin, released in 1936. I have found through the popularity of the Silent Comedy Watch Party that during this pandemic, one of the things that has happened a lot is people are discovering silent film and how much fun and how satisfying an experience it is watching it. So many people are looking for other things to watch that are not lots of little boxes with people we work with in them. And silent film, because ironically of all the things that are missing, is a much more right brain activity and much more engaging, the way video games might be, much more than any other regular television or streaming program. And I think that this is perhaps this is why the episode I was on resonated so well. Who knows how any of this works? Maybe a lot of people from quote unquote my list found out and came on over and listened to the episode, or maybe a lot of Charlie Chaplin fans got the episode recommended to them by some algorithm. Either way, I'm so glad it was of interest to listeners of the I Love That Movie podcast. And if you are a silent film fan or new to silent film, or if you could just use a few good laughs on a regular basis, I hope you'll check out my show, The Silent Comedy Watch Party. It's a live stream that we do for free on YouTube every Sunday at 3 p.m. We leave the episodes up, so if you're out getting some air through, a mask or two, or you forgot or whatever, you can still catch the show. We've been at it since March 22nd of 2020, every single week for a year now. And if you want several good laughs, you can binge watch all of our older episodes. Every episode we show 2 or 3 slapstick comedy shorts from the 19-teens or 20s. I accompany them live on my acoustic piano, and I'm joined virtually, of course, by my friend Steve Massa from across on the other side of Manhattan to do film introductions. It's a live stream show, and it's a lot of fun to catch the show when it's actually happening. And I hope you'll check out the Silent Comedy Watch Party. Again, thanks for listening, and thank you, Lisa, for having me on your I Love That Movie podcast.
Okay, so we are on number 2. The number 2 most downloaded episode from last year is Hereditary. So I brought Courtney back to talk about it. Hey, Courtney.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Well,
I know, but you gotta ask because I mean,
you gotta
sometimes,
ask. You gotta ask. Today feels better than yesterday. I'll
yeah,
say that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you again. I feel like you're always on the countdown, which is not surprising at all to me. But I'm glad you're here
Well,
again.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and so it was Hereditary, which this movie I feel like when it came out, it had hugely mixed reactions, but I
Yeah,
feel like as it gets into the rearview mirror, it really feels like more people have slowly sort of come on board and come to really appreciate it,
yeah.
right?
Because you have to kind of think about it after you've watched it. Like I said, I had to watch it a couple of times before it all gelled because it was such a not to be vulgar, but it was such a mind fuck in terms of
No,
like
seriously.
how you thought it was going and then where it ended up. It was like completely not at all where I thought it was going to go. Like I thought we were going to be talking about like schizophrenia and all this stuff. I did not the cult aspect didn't really hit me until I guess when she started looking through like her mom's stuff
Yes.
and I was like, "Oh, holy shit."
So I had another guest point this out one time, and I'd never thought about it, but I think it's absolutely true. I think it might have been Thomas that said this, but I feel like the 2017, 2018 era
Mhm.
um was a lot about subverting expectations in film.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true because there were a lot of movies that did that. They kind of like threw you for a loop a little bit. That
Yeah,
were
like Star Wars. I mean,
yeah.
that was probably the biggest thing that everyone had a hard time with. But it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it felt like there was sort of this shift in tone and expectations. And, this movie did that so well that I like you, kind of needed some time to really digest it and think about it.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just one of those movies that like I've gone back and seen several times now since then. And it just, for me, gets better upon each viewing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Cuz there's stuff like I even watched it a little bit ago and there was stuff that I saw that I was like, "Oh, holy crap. I missed that completely." Like just where the people are and like some of the more nuanced like Easter eggs, I guess you could call them clues, I guess you would say. That it's just like, man, I would have never noticed that until just going back. Like there was a scene where there was like a light in the window in Annie's studio and then she
oh
spills that
yeah,
paint and I was like, "Oh, that was oh my gosh, that was like the entity or payment spirit or whatever you want to call it." But I completely didn't see that in like the first few times that I watched it, and then I went back
me
and watched it. I was
neither.
like, "Wait, what was that?"
Yeah, it's I mean, and also I feel like now we're living in a post like cult all over TV
Mhm.
world. Like I think when this came out, that was kind of starting to come into being, and now
Mhm.
it's like everything has cults in it, and I'm not complaining. But it's like it's interesting to go back and see like when this was sort of at the beginning of all that. But I love that aspect of the film. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked a lot that it was a lot like Rosemary's Baby,
Yeah.
and in how like in the background it feels like it is in the movie, and then suddenly it all gets kind of like pushed to the front, and a lot of people have made that comparison. But yeah, so I love this movie so much. I was so happy when you picked it. I just thoroughly enjoyed recording it with you. Like
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I get to finally say all the stuff that I want to say, and I wanted to hear all the things that you wanted to say as well. Did you ever feel like there was anything that we missed or that we should have talked
Oh
about?
man, I don't know, cause like it's one of those movies where it's like there's so much happening,
Yes.
and it's hard to know. It's hard to know if you've missed something. It's hard to know because like again, you don't see some of the things until after the fact. But then, oh gosh, it was so like it was the way that everything was like orchestrated with the cult and all of the symbols and like all of the stuff that she said, like even the stuff that Annie said when she was like in her first like grief meeting about her
Yes.
brother, about
Yes.
like she was like saying that like her brother used to say that their mom was like trying to put people inside of him. It's like,
Oh
oh,
my
maybe
god.
he's schizophrenic, but no, she was actually trying to put people inside of him.
I think I just love that so much because I feel like if this movie came out, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, the focus would have been, I think, on mental health,
Yeah.
which is like a super, I think, hot topic right now in film anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like it's refreshing to sort of touch on it a little bit, but then just throw like a curveball, like where
Yeah.
Babadook like is like a metaphor for grief. And this is too, it's just gotten more
Yeah.
like realism to it, to the, I guess, cult aspect. it's
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
actually the happening, it's not
Yes.
just a metaphor.
Yes.
Whereas in Babadook I feel like you could maybe view it under the lens that, it is a metaphor. So
Mm-hmm.
I like that because I feel like we've been missing that for a little bit.
Yeah, I do think so. I think, and I don't want to be like, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but like I think the film industry in these types of movies uses mental health issues as a crutch almost.
Yes, amen. And I mean, to the point where I was even kind of like when we were recording the episode, I was nervous about like terms I might use or things I might say because,
Yeah. Because it's so
these are real things
sensitive.
that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people really do have schizophrenia. They really do have different mental health struggles, and I think that it's such a big spectrum. I mean, mental health can be everything from like
Yeah.
anxiety to depression to whatever. And you're right, I think film often sometimes uses it as a crutch, and it can even be like, I think, insensitive.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're the person in your life with this mental health struggle is also a serial killer, and it's like that's not really
Yeah.
true. And
Yeah.
that paints people that struggle with real problems in a negative light. Whereas I feel like this movie didn't do that. It was almost like because people were just painting her with that broad brush, they missed like what was actually happening. It was easy to
Yeah.
dismiss her grief. So in that way, I think it was like a little bit better at
Mm-hmm.
portraying that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think so too. And I think my the thing that I it's a trope that I absolutely can't stand sometimes. The only thing that kind of like irked me was like how like her husband didn't believe her.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
That irritates the shit out of me because it's like, if, and I mean maybe it's just me, but if a friend of mine or like a loved one came to me and like had something to say, like something crazy like this to say, I would like take notice and be like, okay, let's figure this out. Not, you're crazy, I'm not going to believe you. Like that bothers me. That I wish
Well,
that
who
they
are these
wouldn't do
people
that.
like marrying people that like don't
Yeah.
believe them? Like,
Yeah.
what the, get out of that marriage. But yeah, like we recorded an episode the other day on Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and that movie came out in like 1950, 1960, somewhere around there. And the
Mhm. Mhm.
protagonist in that film talks to a bunch of people in the town, and they say these pretty outrageous things. I don't think that's my uncle, even though he looks, sounds like him,
Yeah.
remembers everything. I still don't think it's him. And what was so refreshing to me about that movie is like the main protagonist listens to her and goes, okay, well, what exactly do you think,
Yeah.
what's giving you that impression? And
Yeah.
she says what it is. She's like, it feels off. And he like listens to her, and I think, wow, that's like a movie from a while ago.
Yeah.
I think that's cool that in the movie he takes everyone seriously. He really listens to them, because I do think it is a little bit more realistic that if you love someone or you care about someone, that you would at least listen to them. Like,
Yeah.
and that makes it, I think, scarier for the audience, because then the audience is thinking, wow, this is like a person that this other person trusts and believes. And like, how scary would that be if somebody you trust and believe is telling you something that sounds impossible?
Yeah.
But yeah, often, I mean, I guess like the only excuse I can give it is that their marriage seems like they had really poor communication in general, and so maybe
Definitely.
that was why. But I agree with you that it's not a trope that I like. I cannot stand any horror movie where the husband's like, "Oh, honey, you're just being ridiculous." It's like,
Yeah.
dump that guy then.
It's like find you somebody who will listen to you and try and work out the situation, because that's tired. That's old.
Yeah,
That's
I'd be
so
so upset if I
that's so
was them.
1950s.
It is. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's probably the only thing I thought of too. But I just wanted to thank you again, for coming on and for talking about this, and really appreciate you being on. And like, do you have anything that you want to plug?
Just find me at my usual places, at Vicky Bain on Instagram. I believe I'm Victoria_Bain on Twitter. Just doing my wig commissions and cosplay and whatnot.
Very cool. Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
I'd love to be back. Thanks.
All right, and we are down to the number 1 episode of last year. And that episode was Batman 1989. And so I brought back my guest, Tim. Say hi, Tim.
Hi, number 1. That's crazy.
You did it. If I had like confetti guns or something, I mean, you're not here, but you could see me shoot them, I guess.
That's right. I can feel. I can
hear
imagine
and
the confetti
imagine.
flying around me as I go.
You're like, wow, I'm
like in my mouth.
so blessed. I don't know what you would say, but
Yeah,
something like that.
No, my mouth fell open. Like, I mean, you can't see it because it's a podcast, it's audio. But like when you said like number 1, I was like, like it's like
you're
my
number
birthday.
1. It's a fun countdown, and I'm not surprised, to be honest, considering my listener base. I feel like is 90% from people that came over from the DC world, specifically like the Suicide Squad cast and your show and other places. Like, I just feel like it's all the same peeps, and so it's no surprise to me that anything with Batman in it would get a lot of ratings. But also because you're on it, and you're frequently on the top 5. So,
oh, that's very nice of you to say. It's all Batman. It's not me though. I mean, like, who doesn't want to listen to a podcast about Batman '89?
seriously, so true. Yeah.
That's so exciting. Thank you for having me back. Obviously, I love being here. So anytime to chat with you is time well spent in my book. So, and then you drop number 1 on me, and that's like, you just made my night. That's so nice.
Good. Yeah, I really enjoyed recording this episode with you. It was this is a movie that I grew up with, that I really enjoy, and I like Batman maybe too much. So just all those things, plus a good guest. Like, I think we did a pretty good episode. I mean, humble brag here, but I think it was pretty good.
I know. I mean, I was gonna say, 6 is good. 6 is good, but like a number 1, that's like that's good. That's my deep pull from Batman '89 for the evening, I think.
There you go.
But no, I love talk. I mean, I could talk about this movie morning, noon, and night, and I won't, because I'm pretty sure my wife would have killed me at this point if I did that. But like you, I grew up with it, and there's of course heavy nostalgia factored in with this movie. You grew up with it, I grew up with, but nostalgia doesn't mean a movie is bad or a thing is bad. It just means you have fond memories of it. And so this movie was very popular when it came out. People didn't have nostalgia for a movie that just came out. So there's something really tangibly fun about Batman '89, but also gruesome and dark at the same time, but not too dark that you can't pop in and enjoy it and not be sad about the world at the end.
Right. I mean, he is the Dark Knight, and I also, when you were saying like, you just have such a fond memory of this, I was thinking, as you were talking about, like, how not only is it a great movie, not only did I grow up with it, but it's tied up in my feelings about, the WB store. And
totally. Yep.
And just like, that was like the heyday of the Warner Brothers store, and going into the mall and like seeing the Batmobile and seeing all the stuff in there, all the paraphernalia, and going to Six Flags, and there was like the weird Batman. I think this was when Batman Returns came out, but there was like that Batman show at Six Flags where,
yep.
Yeah, I don't remember what the plot was, but Catwoman was there. I don't know. It was great as a kid.
There were explosions, and the Batmobile came out.
Yes.
And people yelled, and people took all of the all of the lessons they learned in acting school and threw them out the window and performed the heck out of it. And that's what that show was.
At the Six Flags here in Dallas, if you kind of drive on a certain side of the street, I don't know if they've moved this by now, so maybe I'm wrong, but you used to be able, like, from the highway still see the Batmobile, like, sad little Batmobile off in the corner that they hadn't moved completely out of the park, but is not really featured mainly in the park anymore. And I would always be like, oh man, that's like, that's just bringing up so many memories. But yeah, like this movie it's not just the movie. It reminds me of like all the commercials, all the, all the merch, all the stuff around it too. So it's just kind of like happy all the way around.
Absolutely. And it's coming back for people too, which I really, which I like. This movie has never left me, and like obviously, like it hasn't left a lot of people either, but now it's like it's coming back into the mainstream, and I love that. Like NECA just released the comics coming out, and it's making its way back into the minds of people, and it's a beautiful thing because it's a great movie.
Yes, I didn't know that about the comics. I'll have to look into that. I feel like I'm very out of touch with comics right now. I think just like being inside all day long, like I was reading a lot at first. I'm like, oh, I have all the time in the world to read. And then I kind of got a little burnt out. So like taking a little break, but I should definitely get back into it and read what's out there. I haven't even finished Invincible yet. Chris Balga suggested that, and I haven't even finished that yet, but I'm going to put that on my list, I think.
Chris is a smart person, and you definitely should continue to read Invincible. Batman '89 comic isn't out yet, so
good. I have time.
Plenty of time.
Great.
But I don't think it's coming out until June or July. It's coming out in July. So it comes out like the day before my birthday or something like that. So
it came out right for your birthday.
It did, just for me.
Just
That's
for
why
you.
This movie's great. Yeah, nobody else. Just me. Just me.
Well, so, okay, was there anything, I know this was like a while ago, but when we recorded this, but was there anything on that episode that you wanted to mention that you didn't kind of get to slide under the radar or anything like that?
I don't remember, to be totally honest.
I know, I feel like I've talked about this movie so many times, not just on my podcast, but on other podcasts too, that I'm like, I feel like I covered it.
I don't know if there's like I don't think I have any more like fun facts stored in my brain or anything like that. It's not like Lord of the Rings where Viggo kicks the helmet and everyone goes, "Did you know he broke his toe? He broke his toe, right? He broke his toe. Everyone knows that." Okay, great. I think we don't have any more of those facts for Batman '89. I'm pretty out. I have
agree.
seen the Batmobile in person. I don't know if I said that on the podcast.
Oh, you have. So tell us about that.
It was very, very cool. It was at some Comic-Con. I can't remember which one. It might have been Boston, could have been Rhode Island. I can't remember. I think it was Rhode Island. But yeah, they had those Batmobiles that they tour the country. You could take a picture with it, so on and so forth.
Very cool.
And what struck me with it is how low to the ground it really is. Like that's like getting in and out of that thing must have been awful in the Batsuit. Truly awful.
I'm going to tell Nick that because I feel like, so my husband, he loves cars, and I used to, back when we first started dating, I would make fun of him all the time because he had this car that he, like if you're really into them and you like, he wasn't like a street racer, but he liked that kind of stuff. And so he like lowered his car and it was very low to the ground to where like, if there were any speed bumps, it like stressed him out. And I was like, why do you enjoy this? I've never understood why people like this so much. I'm gonna have to tell him about the Batmobile now.
Maybe there's like a symbiotic relationship with the road. Like
yeah,
I'm over the road because I'm close to the road, something like that.
I'm realizing I never asked him, and I probably sound super dumb right now to anybody that knows anything about that. But
that was me spitballing because it is not my world at all. I'm just like, I'm putting on my English teacher brain, and I'm like, well, if the car symbolically is close to the ground, blah,
extension
blah, blah,
of himself, his psyche,
blah, 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 blah. Right?
Yeah, I'll have to ask him, but or maybe like around that time, because this car that he had, this is me also making something up, was from the 90s, so maybe that was in style. I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask him. I'm gonna have to find out after this. But that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I would love to see the Batmobile. I think I've only seen like not that this is not to take anything away from replicas, but I think I've only seen replicas of it.
replica. But I mean, like a good replica can trick you. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
for sure. I
Like,
mean, there's some really good ones.
yeah. And if honestly the one that I saw was a replica, I didn't know. And
You're like,
but
nope,
it doesn't
it's Batman
doesn't
wrote that. Yeah. Or
right,
he
yeah,
drove
it
it.
doesn't remove the joy of the experience, because I
Yeah.
saw what I see as the car tangible in front of me,
Very
and I got
cool.
to touch it, and that's very cool. No, did I get to touch it? No, I don't think so. That doesn't seem
You're
right.
like, I made that part up. But
I might have done that without them knowing. I don't know.
if they're listening, I didn't touch it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You don't know me or what I look like.
But that's really cool. Oh, I miss cons.
Yeah, right? I
Someday we'll
know.
go to those again too. But
I know.
yeah, that's really neat. I don't have a cool story like that. But I think that's really really neat. And I like I said, I understand like appreciating seeing something in person, or like when you do get to see like a replica and they let you sit in it and you're like, look at me, I'm in the DeLorean or whatever it happens to be. And that's always such a fun experience to like see a physical prop in person. So that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for, being on that episode. I always love having you on. And I love talking with you and Palmer on Academy Rewind about movies. It's just always such a blast. So thank you so much for, picking this movie. Thank you for talking with me about it. And thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. As the feeling's very mutual. I love being here, and we love having you on Academy Rewind. Come back anytime you want.
And speaking of that, do you want to plug your various social medias so that people can find you?
Absolutely. Thank you. You can find me on Twitter at TimothyPG13. You can find all of my podcasts for the Thought Bubble Audio Network at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. That's Academy Rewind for the Oscars, and the Gospel According to Lucas, and Supergirl TV Talk, and Beer with Geeks, and Read Up, and a whole slew of other ones that I am not a part of. So if you're looking for your podcast needs, then you can head over to thoughtbubbleaudio.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Oh, thanks for having me.